that as a stand. And then you add this case into the mix, which in itself already has a stand that can rotate to any angle that you want it to, and you start to think to yourself, I can use this phone however I can think to use this phone. This is what I mean when I say that the extra screen here is like the difference between 2D and 3D, because the possibilities aren't just additive, they are multiplicative. And they've managed to do all of this without even sacrificing on the cameras. I mean, you can probably tell by the fact that this camera bump is half the thickness of the phone, but this is on the upper end of foldable phone cameras. And even though it is somewhat early days on the software, like not that many things are fully optimized for 3 screens, it does feel like they have thought about the user experience. Like, for example, when you want to unlock, the pin screen comes up on the side that you swipe up with. So this is interesting enough that yes, I would love to see what Samsung and Xiaomi and other foldable phone makers can do with this type of form factor. Because while it does create a number of issues in itself, they're all solvable. And what it does is it fixes the one big one and actually makes foldables useful for the masses. Now, that is not to say that Huawei gets a free pass, because while the trifold design could work, this specific attempt at one does not. I mean, the smaller issues are already something. There's the fact that, yes, there is absolutely a honeymoon phase with this, where you wake up every day with a spring in your step, you turn over to your phone, you open it, and you marvel at how on earth Huawei fit this much device into 3.6 millimeters of thickness when unfolded. But as the days go on, you come to another realization, that because this thing is now twice as much effort to unfold, you're going to end up using it a lot more just like this. And when you use it folded up like this, you're basically just holding a brick phone that happens to weigh 300 grams. Because even though the thing isn't much thicker than normal phones, it's the hinges. Having to have 2 hinges on this means that a higher proportion of the device has to be made of densely compacted metal. And speaking of hinges, they don't fold both ways. So the front folds outwards, whereas the rear folds inwards. And if you get that wrong even once with a little too much pressure, well, it'll still fold, just irreversibly. I've seen this happen enough times that I have decided I won't be the guy who tries it. And it ain't just the hinges, you also have to be very careful with the screen. Folding phone screens are much easier to scratch than normal phone screens, and there are lots of situations when using this where you have to expose some part of this pressure screen to the elements. And on that note, how precious? Well, you know that I paid $5,000, which is obviously not the retail price of this thing. I managed to scalp one and sell it on eBay for profit price. But even the retail price in China, where it's mainly on sale, is $2,800 or $3,400 for the top spec model. And because this screen is such a unique component, the repair costs for this piece alone are $1,000. And even when you're not looking after the screens, you're looking at the creases on them. Do you notice they're actually not the worst we've seen, but by no means invisible? Well, that's partly because when you add more hinges, you can't make each hinge as good. A good hinge that doesn't crease the display takes up valuable space. And since the entire priority here is to compress the design as much as possible, something's got to give. But as I was saying, all of these issues, potentially solvable. And to be fair, expected when you're trying something that's this different. None of this stuff makes this phone a write-off. There is a deeper Huawei problem. And I'm not even talking about the over 50 pre-installed apps, or the fact that if you want to do literally anything Google, you have to do it via one of these shady applications that try to convince Google you're not coming from a Huawei phone. Like, the most common one is Gbox, which signs into Google by identifying as a Samsung Galaxy A22. I know because I got the email confirmation for it. Here's the thing. If you've watched any Huawei launch events recently, you'll have seen that Richard Yu, who leads them, keeps saying that Huawei is far ahead of its competitors. This company feels hyper aware of what Apple and Samsung are doing and wants to make it very publicly clear to Chinese citizens that those companies are slacking in comparison. And you might look at something like this and say, you know what? Actually, yeah, I don't see Samsung's trifold phone, even if they have already used the letter Z for a phone that looks nothing like a Z. Huawei is ahead. But I think the reason they're doing this is because this is all they can do. See, the Huawei US ban in 2019 completely crippled this company. Cutting off access to their suppliers from all around the world basically means that in some ways Huawei's tech has frozen in time. Like, look at this. The chip that powered Huawei's P10, this is their 2017 flagship phone, is based off a 16nm fabrication process. The lower that number, the better, because it basically means the chip is more efficient. So let's look at next year, the P20 Pro. wow, huge improvement, 16 nanometers all the way down to 10 nanometers. And again with the next phone, the